Our two candidates tonight are J.R. Claeys and Gary Swartzengruber. I'd like to introduce Abner Perney, President of the Salina League of Women Voters, to review the format and our rules.
On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Salina, I welcome you again to this public service event. This forum is being recorded by Community Access TV and actually being broadcast live on Salina Cable 21 and on their internet broadcasting system. Then also KOOD Smoky Hills Public Television from Bunker Hill is recording this event for broadcast before Election Day. Remind you all that Election Day is Tuesday, November 4th. This time I want to direct your attention to the front row. We have Carmen Wilson and Diana Tarver, who are experienced, long-time volunteers with the League. They will be timing, and we'll hold up a red sign to let the candidates know that their time is up. There will also be an audio signal that their 1 minute is up. To the right is the press question screening committee made up of the League members Ann Zimmerman, Sue Holmes, Carol Beyer, and of Salina Chamber President Dennis Lava. These folks will be reviewing the questions and forwarding up here for the audience question portion of the forum. Don Weiser of the Salina Chamber and David Norland of the Salina League made the arrangements for this evening. We especially thank Kansas Wesleyan University for anchoring our city, providing liberal arts education opportunities since 1886. And this is the first time that our forum has been held here, thanks to the university. Both Don Weiser and Lori Troe of the Salina League compiled voters' guides. They're slightly different. They're available at the front entrances both sides. Also available are copies of the sample ballot for each of the 3 state congressional districts, because they vary a little bit, but the sample ballots are available also out of the tables on the entrances of both sides of the stage here. Pads and pencils are provided for the audience members to write down questions for candidates. League members will collect those questions and take them to the screeners. Please hold up your hand if you need to get their attention. Here are the ground rules of operating plan for this forum. Each candidate has 1 minute for an opening presentation, 1 minute to answer each question, and 1 minute for closing remarks. And we ask them to please pay attention to the timekeepers. The order of answering questions will be alternated. They're going to do this themselves, so each candidate takes turns at being the first to answer each question. All questions come either from the audience in this written form that I will read, or from the media panel. We ask that the audience, if you're writing your questions, do not direct your question to one specific candidate. Make them issue-oriented and general so that each candidate can respond. Questions directed toward one candidate will be eliminated by the screening committee. We will ask as many questions as we can in the allotted time. We hope you understand that your question may not be used or may be reworded to shorten or clarify it. This will be done in the interest of reducing redundancy and covering as many subjects as possible. That said, it's time for the 1 minute opening remarks for the candidates for Kansas State District, Legislative District 69, and Mr. Claeys will start.
Thanks, Abner. Thanks to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to the Salina Chamber of Commerce, Kansas Wesleyan University, and of course Access TV, who is filming tonight. Really appreciate you all coming out here tonight. It's great to see so many folks come out for the local government portion of this, as local government is the part that's closest to you and really has the most impact on your day-to-day life. I'm J.R. Claeys. I am your state representative in the 69th District serving West Salina and Northwest Saline County. It's an honor to serve as your state representative. I'm running on a record that includes job growth, reducing taxation, economic incentives for our small businesses to create growth here in Salina and Saline County, as well as respecting our teachers, passing legislation that's going to give teacher raises and all-day kindergarten for Salina schools, the largest school district in the state without it. And again, an honor to serve you, and I appreciate you coming out tonight.
Good evening. I'm glad you're all here. My appreciation to the League and the Chamber and KW for hosting. I'm Gary Swartzengruber, 4th State Representative, District 69. I live at 528 South College. You're welcome to come visit anytime. For 32 years, I've been active in civic affairs, most recently supporting citizen groups for strong public health, education, and business, and fair wages for all workers. Like so many of you, I'm alarmed about the direction of our state under current leadership. As your state representative, here are my priorities. 1, restore Kansas school funding, which has been stripped back to below 1992 levels. Our children's quality education is our #1 economic tool, providing the means to succeed. 2, fewer state special interest tax giveaways at the expense of raising local taxes. 3, respect seniors and the vulnerable among us. Thanks.
Thank you. We're going to start our questions from the media. We have with us tonight Ben Waring from the Salina Journal, Andy Picking from Eagle Media Center, and Todd Pittenger from the Salina Media Group. The first question will be from Todd Pittenger.
I've heard some campaign ads from both of you within the last couple of weeks. I've had too many questions I can count about those ads. So I'm going to start out asking about those. Two-pronged question. Gary, are you a deadbeat dad? JR, do you live in the district?
Good question. Good questions both. No, I am not a deadbeat dad. 32 years ago, an amicable divorce, joint custody, joint child support, agreed upon, not within the restraints of the court. 9 years later, a new development. I complied with the new development and the new rules. I love my children then, I love my children now, and you can refer to any one of them for a confident response from them.
Yes.
I think the next question is yours.
The state of Kansas is already more than $300 million behind budget estimates for the new fiscal year, starting from July 1. And I want to know what you think needs to be done to address the situation.
Yeah, that's a complicated situation that we find ourselves in. We do have a very large budget surplus currently. But as we start to project out into the future, and then also the estimations that are before us now, and it's important to understand what an estimation is. Basically, a group gets together and says, this is about how much we think is going to come in, and they use different economic indicators, and 3 people come together with differing opinions and kind of settle on a result. So missing someone's target that's sort of invented out there is, it's based on someone's guess. But it's also what our budget's based on. So if we have that guess and we're using that to base our budget on it, it's very difficult when those numbers don't come in as they should. Now, there are several things happening in the national economy that have caused some of those things, people moving their tax payments from this month to that month and those sorts of things that can be explained, but nevertheless, we're in the situation we find ourselves in now.
We have approximately a $16 billion budget. We have approximately $8 billion of indirect expenditures, which are various kinds of tax breaks, tax loopholes, tax credits. In my humble opinion, the first thing that Governor Brownback did was give a 100% tax break. All of a sudden, 200,000 businesses pay 0 income tax. Since education is about 70% of the state budget, that almost obligates Governor Brownback and his helpers to denigrate funding for education because they're almost required to do that because it's 70% of the budget. So we have to freeze the tax giveaways to special interest at the cost of everybody else. There may be a few people in this room got it.
We're going in a different direction here. Governor Brownback has formed a commission to study the recent increase in the number of earthquakes in Kansas that may or may not be related to fracking in the oil and gas industry. Has the governor taken the right steps to do this, or should something else be done, or should nothing be done at all?
I feel comfortable with the idea that Governor Brownback, instead of a personal ideological agenda, is sort of depending on science, perhaps. I think that's a good sign. There is hope for the Brownback administration. I'll put it this way. Good, I'm glad somebody said that.
Louder, Gary!
Still louder. All right. Should I get it closer? Is somebody shutting off my mic?
Get it closer.
Okay. Here we go. All right. Wow. Things have changed here. I was leaning further back. Anyway, put it this way. When we come to energy, source of energy, we left the Stone Age a long time ago with plenty of stones behind. We will be leaving the coal age and the oil age and going into renewable energy sources. I think it's good that he's at least investigating. I hope he's serious about it.
Well, I'm actually going to agree with Gary here for a second. This is going to be a first. I think that we do need to start investigating new sources of energy. Wind energy, we are the second windiest state in the nation, and it's not just because of the two of us up here. We are in a position to really benefit from these renewable sources of energy, and we need to continue to explore that. That doesn't mean we do it to the exclusion of other forms of energy. I think it is important that we continue to investigate ways to gain energy from the sources that we have at our disposal. Now they're less expensive, but there's certainly a lot to be said for becoming a wind state, a wind energy state, exporting that and benefiting from that, and the jobs that come with it that are frankly right up against the county line and have not crossed over to the state. But you know, there's some things in play there, but I do think that we need to continue to investigate that and start to bring those jobs here to Salina and Saline County.
Currently, same-sex marriage is not legal in Kansas, but a Supreme Court action, or rather inaction, earlier this week could ultimately lead to it becoming legal in Kansas. This leads to my question, though. If, as a state legislator, you were able to cast a vote on this issue, would you vote for or against same-sex marriage, and why would you vote that way?
Well, Todd, currently we have a constitutional amendment in our Constitution, and that's been voted on by the people of the state of Kansas, so I'll let that speak for itself. But I think it's first and foremost important to recognize that we should never make anyone feel ashamed to be who they are. And that when we're deciding things like laws and how they impact individuals, that we should keep that in mind. Sometimes decisions are made in haste that aren't the best decisions. I do believe that we need to be respectful of the First Amendment and religious liberties, while at the same time, on balance, not allowing the state to necessarily treat people dramatically differently, but again, respecting religion and religious beliefs of those institutions.
A district judge in Utah, which then includes the Kansas geography, passed that decision down. As I understand it, someone has to bring a lawsuit in the state of Kansas before that will then be completed, that issue. I personally, here's my position, I didn't like it when we had a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. I was born heterosexual, enjoyed being a heterosexual. Someone that was not born and enjoys my proclivities, I'm not going to castigate him. Here's what I really did not like at the state level. Passing a law, hiding bigotry, hiding discrimination in prayer, to me is despicable.
the surrounding area have a significant and growing Hispanic population. What would you like to see the state do in regards, and I understand this is a federal issue, but what would you like to see the state do in regard to immigration?
Had a conversation with one of our county commissioners just last week over lunch, by the way, at the esteemed senior center where seniors are highly regarded and respected. We go there for conversation, and we go there for information exchange. This county commissioner said there's a family of Mexicans who have been in this community for a long time. The children are well-behaved, well-mannered, well-educated. The father is in the process of being deported as we speak. And this commissioner, even though he's taken some heat over the last years, I think suggests that that action would be despicable, and I agree with him.
Well, in regards to immigration, you're right, Ben. It is a federal issue, and right now what the federal government's doing is wrong, and they're putting that burden onto the states, and they're really putting us in a very difficult position where it's very expensive. We're taking on many of these kids, and they're being put into our schools, and they cost a lot of money at the local level, and those are expenses that they did not account for as those kids start being brought into Kansas. I think that we do need to do something at the state level about that and make sure that those schools are made whole for the burdens being placed upon them for educating kids who, for the most part, don't speak the language, and that's difficult for them. I think, on the other hand, that also that there needs to be a tremendous amount of compassion for families, people who came here who have an expiration date on their stay. They have kids. Those kids are in our schools. It's important that we don't leave those kids as abandoned, essentially, when the federal government comes by and says that the parents need to go home.
Should the state of Kansas expand Medicaid?
Does that mean? Oh, okay. I don't believe Medicaid expansion is the appropriate thing to do right now, and that's based upon many conversations with people in our disability community here in Salina. In addition to it being extremely expensive and something that we just simply cannot afford, it's also, it doesn't do anything for the people who are in the system now. Medicaid expansion will increase the amount of lines that those people are seeing to get access to services, and I don't want to see that happen. We need to get better at the services we're delivering now before we head into any sort of expansion, and that needs to be investigated fully before diving headfirst into something that's not only costly, but could potentially end up being a disservice to the people who are currently in our disability community waiting for services.
Yes, we need to expand Medicaid. The governor and his allies spent nearly $1 billion to get 3 private insurance companies to take charge. There have been benefits lost, customers lost, slow payment of claims. Since the inception of the governor refusing federal dollars, we have lost, in addition to spending $1 billion to privatize, we've lost nearly another $1 billion in federal revenue. And we absolutely, in my humble opinion, can't allow the same thing to happen to Medicare that happened to Medicaid. That would be a travesty.
Marijuana is legal in Colorado. It's also legal in Washington State. It being legal in Colorado has caused some problems here in Kansas with people transporting it here and there. Would you support the legalization of marijuana in Kansas, whether for medical use or recreational use, either, both, and why?
Yes, I would support that. I think we are already looking at Colorado to see how that's going. I certainly would support industrial hemp. My goodness, look at how that would stimulate the economy for farmers. They could buy perhaps some buy some more John Deere tractors if they could have some more cash crops. I think the way Colorado is approaching it, if I had a medical situation, or if my opponent had a medical situation, or any of you, and if that were if that were a treatment that would work, why would we not endorse that? Yes, I would be in favor of that.
As far as recreational use, absolutely not. I think that there are some forms of medical marijuana that would be acceptable. My uncle, as he was suffering from malignant melanoma, he had the benefit of that at the end of his life over in California, and it allowed him to be lucid for those last few days that we had the opportunity to spend with him. So having some personal experience with that, I think that there are some things that we can do within the confines of keeping it related to medicine and the practice of medicine and qualified doctors to make those decisions.
As you talk to people in the 69th district, what are they telling you is the top issue that they're facing, and what would they like you to do about it?
As I go door to door, I am hearing a lot about taxation, and honestly, you still hear about Obamacare a lot. I know that's not necessarily a state issue, but it is talked about frequently. But people are getting a little tired of the constant property tax increases, and that's one of the reasons that I did vote in favor of a almost 5 mil, 4.95 mil property tax cut for Salina taxpayers. That was part of the school finance bill and really provided some relief for folks here in Salina. So I think that's probably one of the biggest issues next to, again, Obamacare, which we don't necessarily deal with a lot at the state level. It's fun to talk about.
Walking in diverse neighborhoods in the 69th, having conversations, going to meetings, going to events. Here's the conversation. Number one issue: restore funding to education. Because people think at every level of education, pre-kindergarten, K through 12, workforce training, adult continuing education, education is the dynamo that generates the skills that turn our economy and keep the economy turning and going. And then talking about education, I find it very difficult that JR seems to he somehow thinks he generated more local money as a result.
Staying on the education topic, what about the tenure for teachers?
I know several teachers. I know one teacher in particular. I'm going to use this as an example. By the way, I have been in the public school system. All my children graduated from the public school system and are all attending Regents universities at this point. And my grandchildren have all been also in the Salina public schools, and 2 of them are already in university. Repeat the question. Lost my train of thought.
Tenure for teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Your opinion.
One teacher particularly called my opponent and said, "How come you voted against tenure?" And my opponent responded over the phone, "I didn't vote against it." And my teacher, person to whom I'm referring, said, "Yes, you did. I've got it right in front of me. You voted, that was part of the school bill, and you voted against tenure." It's a bad idea to reduce funding, to try to silence teachers, to try to slow down the education program, which in my opinion makes everything else operate.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. We have tenure here in Salina. The school finance bill was a huge win for Salina, for Salina teachers, for educators, for taxpayers, for students, for parents. Not only do we have almost 5 mills in property tax cut, but we saw $2 million in the county going towards the classroom. We saw teacher raises of 4.2%. The statewide average was 2.4 from that bill, so Salina is a huge winner in that. And also, we were able to preserve about $800,000 for all-day kindergarten teachers. We're going to have all-day kindergarten here in Salina schools. That's a huge win for us. The property tax cut would pay for our bond issue that builds those classrooms twice over. We won on that, and again, we have tenure, so it's really difficult to have that be a linchpin decision maker when you're representing a group of people and you're keeping that. So I would say that that's a win-win, and that tenure somewhere else is not as important to me as what's happening right here in Salina.
There's a divide in Kansas, a divide in Topeka, Republican versus Democrat, moderate Republican versus conservative Republican. What could you do to reach out to the other side, so to speak, to get things accomplished, or do you even think it is important to try to reach out to the other side?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's very important to reach out and to get things done. I worked with Representative Julie McGinney just this last session to get the disability access tax credit that I introduced passed. We had a tough row to hoe to get that thing done, but I introduced that. It's a bill that allows for a tax credit for anyone who's making modifications to their home to increase accessibility. So if you have a mobility issue, generally someone who's disabled, you're able to make the modifications such as wheelchair ramps, expanding hallways, making some bathrooms accessible, that sort of thing, completely tax-free. And we were able to get that put into, of all things, because Representative Julie McGinney does such a great job with it, a livestock bill, and got that to the governor's desk and passed. So that's important for Salina, it's important for Saline County, it's important for Kansans. Anyone with a disability issue who wants to stay in their home longer is now able to do so because they have that tax cut. And while it's not a huge sum of money, it is important to people to take advantage of it.
A brief response back, if I may, on, according to my opponent, denigrating education does not somehow, stripping education and giving state tax giveaways to the wealthiest among us at the expense of local taxes doesn't add up, and here's why. In 70% of Kansas County, there's been a 10% raise in local taxes. Now, can there be room for bipartisan effort? Absolutely. I will not go to Topeka with a personal agenda thinking that I can transform everyone to my way of thinking. I have no interest in that. It would be a dull, boring world if we all thought and acted and felt the same. But I sure am willing to collaborate and cooperate to have us go forward instead of continuing to move backwards.
This ends our time period set aside for the media panel. We thank the representatives from the Salina Media Group, Eagle Broadcasting, and the Salina Journal. And so now we'll turn to questions from the audience. I believe it's Mr. Swartzengruber's turn to start. And first question on top of this stack, and we probably won't get to everything in the stack, but the first question relates to projected budget deficit within the coming term. If elected, how would you address the budget deficit?
I certainly would vote in favor of putting a freeze on 100% tax breaks, 200,000 businesses paying zero taxes, and then the higher wage earning, the higher income people in the community also getting lower taxes. We need to put a freeze on. We can't extend those tax breaks, which there is every intention to extend those tax breaks more. If the same team goes back, by the way, all state representative seats are up for re-election. If the same team goes back, we're gonna go deeper in the hole. And my opponent referred to the state legislative department. Quite some time ago, they predicted if we stay on the same path, instead of a $2.7 billion surplus by 2018, there will be a 2.7, all right, but it will be a deficit.
Mr. Claeys.
Well, the tax breaks he's talking about are actually the tax breaks that are already in statute, and over the next 5 years they decrease rapidly. But the tax breaks he's talking about are actually the tax breaks for you. The tax breaks that exist in statute that decline are all for wage earners. They're the ones that are paid by wage earners. So those are the ones that are in statute that decline and that he would put a freeze on. The higher end tax breaks actually create jobs in the state of Kansas, so I don't know why anyone would want to decrease those. But as far as what I would do is I would expand our tax base. If you want to keep going in the direction that we were going 5 years ago, that direction is losing us a congressman in 10 years. The direction that we're turning our state into now is one with population growth, so that we're on a track to add congressmen and our national influence goes up. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand that big picture, but it's certainly something that we're going to keep pushing for.
Earlier, we had a question on energy policy. What is your position on the renewable portfolio standards for our power companies?
Governor Brownback is all for that.
Oh, you can go ahead, that's fine.
Last thing I want to do is go out of turn.
No,
and
that's
be
okay, we'll
chastised.
just switch, it's fine.
Okay,
Well,
I'll take
yeah,
my turn.
technically, first time, the answer this time should be Mr. Claeys.
Okay, we'll let you go.
Oh, all right, it's fine either way. I voted against repeal of the renewable portfolio standards the 3 times that it came up, and past votes are probably the best predictor of the future, so that's probably where I'll stand on, no, it's not probably, that is where I'll stand on that issue. I think that it's important that we continue to grow the wind energy industry here in the state of Kansas. I think it's important to incentivize job growth. It's important to incentivize new and emerging industries, and that includes things like the K-State Salina UAV program and things like that come under attack constantly at the state level. We have bills that are introduced that would put an end to that program here at K-State, and that's something that I constantly have to fight to get shoved in a drawer. But those kind of industries are things that are the next big thing. We do sometimes have to incentivize those things and get people going in the right direction on those things, because they aren't instantly something that's profitable. So I am in favor of continuing to encourage wind energy in the state of Kansas.
I commend you for your opinion on that, JR. Governor Brownback did support it in a pretty intense way, and then mysteriously came around the corner in the last month and a half and doesn't support it, and that was directly a result of the fast and furious special interest lobbying firms that lobbied him real hard. He knew it was a moneymaker. It is a good stimulus for the economy. It's good for the state, and the special interest people have swayed him back to back away from it, and it's too bad. And I think that will, a bipartisan effort can overcome that if we get some new representatives in the House to be. And I would certainly be in favor of restoring that back to the process. We need more wind, not less. Again, Stone Age we left behind a long time ago. Plenty of rocks, plenty of stones left behind, and we will be moving forward with the renewables.
Okay, this question relates to a business that I know has been growing. I was exposed to it, the growth of it in my role as a city planning commissioner a while back. And even though it's kind of a niche and it hasn't been in the news, it is an interesting question. I guess Mr. Swartzengruber's turn to be first. Will you support continuing to require state licensure for cosmetology and tattooing, or will you follow suit with Kentucky and South Carolina, who no longer require such licensure?
Well, I'd love to refer that to somebody who has at least one tattoo, if not a whole bunch. It seems like a very dangerous thing to not have a licensure, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, I tend to agree that anytime that you're sticking a needle into somebody, that's probably something where you want to have some sort of level of oversight, and it makes sense to continue that.
Next question, and I guess we're back to Mr. Claeys to start. How would you crack down on parents that do not pay child support?
Well, I think the current state law probably does a fairly good job of that. The one area that's a little nebulous, and I have a little bit of personal experience with this, is the area of self-employed folks, and there's not really an opportunity for wage garnishment there when you have people who go significantly into arrears. So that's probably an area where something could be done to kind of look into that and see if perhaps there's a way to be a little more aggressive with folks who are who are self-employed and who are a little more capable of avoiding the current enforcement that's available to us at the state level.
We sure don't want to penalize the most vulnerable among us by making damn sure they get drug tests when there are lots of people who are not so vulnerable who are misusing drugs a lot more, as in prescription drugs. What did I miss?
How would you crack down on parents that do not pay child support was the question.
Well, certainly wouldn't do it by doing drug testing. If they don't, somebody that's not paying child support will be held accountable at some point. I was divorced 32 years ago, had an amicable divorce arrangement, joint child support, not having to be in the judicial part of the divorce. And like I said before, the rules changed 9 years after the divorce, and then I complied. So you need to hold people accountable who don't for various reasons. I agree, and I was held accountable and complied.
Open-ended answer here, or we got a timer on this?
You stated the question. So we don't know what.
Oh, okay.
At any rate, let us move on to a completely different subject. How would that?
There you go.
The completely subject that came up from the audience is, how can the state legislature help rural hospitals? And Mr. Swartzengruber's turn.
Well, we can do that by expanding Medicaid. The rural hospitals. Yeah, we can't leave the federal dollars laying on the table, nearly $1 billion that we've lost. Medicaid is serving fewer people, being less effective than it was, since it is now CanCare. And instead of going backwards, smaller hospitals are going to be extinguished, and even Salina Regional, if I'm not mistaken, no longer take one of the privatized companies to do business with them because they're so slow paying claims. So I think we need to expand Medicaid.
One of the things that we're doing right here in Salina is educating the next generation of doctors for Western Kansas. We have KU Med here in Salina that is now has a full enrollment, and I think they're just doing an amazing job over there. The collaboration between the hospital and the university and so many other stakeholders who have put so much effort into that to make KU Med Salina I think it's the nation's smallest 4-year medical school, which is just absolutely amazing and so great for our community that we have something like that. As far as the Medicaid thing goes, you know, that it is terrible that we have a federal law like that is putting us in a position where we are now payers to the federal government, and that's something that I really have a lot of issue with, the fact that we're now paying more dollars to the federal government than we're receiving back in services, and that is one of the biggest problems that we have with the Medicaid expansion issue as far as Do I get 2 minutes now for this one? Or?
Just be,
Um,
okay.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Here's a subject's been touched briefly in the news, but we all know that more than half of our rural counties have had very consistent declines in population. School districts are partly affected agencies in this rural population decline, which brings up the question of school consolidations and what would be your approach to additional school consolidation?
And I think that's me, is that correct? Kansas State University Extension Service, quite some time ago, looked at a model and wound up consolidating districts. They used to have a county extension office, county extension agents in every county, and I'm not sure, it seems to me they have 12 districts at this point. I'm not suggesting that would be the number. I think that would be a model that ought to be studied and looked at, because we really are not, we're not only not in the Stone Age anymore, but we're not in the horse and buggy days either. We probably don't need so much, we probably don't need a government entity in every small geographical area. I would suggest looking at Kansas State University Extension Agent model.
There are certainly opportunities to consolidate administration and things like that across the state, or even here in Salina County, where it doesn't make sense necessarily to have 5 school districts touching the county. But I think as far as school consolidation, when you're talking about actual physical schools, that's just completely off the table.
This is a two-question question, and